Hi everybody, today I'm going to show how to pause and resume a cluster based on a scheduler. So you're going to need to have your Redshift cluster up and running. I have my particular Redshift clusters in a VPC. So if it is in a VPC, then you're going to need to have, we're going to be creating a Lambda function that's going to have to reside in that VPC. But first things first, let's go and create this Lambda function. So if your Redshift cluster is not in a VPC, then you don't have to worry about this step. I'm just going to call it Redshift cluster. Let's just call it ops. And going to choose Python. Let's do Python 3.7. And use an existing role here, Lambda role. Create this function. So if I take a look at this Lambda role, this role is going to need permissions to the Redshift cluster. So if we take a look here, I have this rs pause resume. So I just have Redshift pause cluster, resume cluster, and delete cluster. And I just have an asterisk for the resource. You might want to change that to be the specific Redshift resource that you would want to be pausing and resuming. I'm just keeping it star for now, just for simplicity's sake. The next thing we're going to want, let us go to Cloudwatch. Let's see if I already created a rule. I do have two rules here, so I'm just going to go into this one rule. Resume cluster. Well, let's do the pause one. Pause cluster. So right now I have this running every day. Why don't we just go into actually creating a new one? Delete this. Let's delete this. So how we're going to do this, we're going to have the cluster paused and resumed on a schedule, right? And we'll kind of, every evening, this Redshift cluster will turn off, will pause, and then every morning it will turn back on. That's the kind of use case. So we'll go to create rule. I'm going to go to schedule. So you could do a fixed rate of, let's say, I don't know, every 16 hours or every 12 hours if you wanted 12 hours on, 12 hours off. I'm going to actually do a cron expression. So we'll say, for now I want to test it out. So I'm going to say like every minute. Yeah, let's do every minute. Okay. And then we'll say every hour. Let's see what we got here. So you see it's going to be every minute it's going to execute. So that's minute, hour, day, month, day of week, and year. So every minute this rule will trigger, and we'll add a target here. We're going to add that Lambda function that I just created, Redshift Cluster Ops. And we'll just configure the input. We'll make it a constant JSON text. And we'll put, let's put type. And we're going to say pause. Okay, configure details. We'll call this rs pause cluster. Pause Redshift cluster. Create rule. So now we have the pause cluster. Let's just test this out. So this function is going to get triggered every minute. It might, if we just wait a minute, it'll get triggered. Let's just go to monitoring. If you go to view logs in Cloudwatch, all right, so log group doesn't exist yet. Let's just wait a minute and see if it gets triggered. Well, actually, before we even do that, we have to do a print statement. So let me just do print event, or there's nothing actually getting logged. Okay, let's just wait a minute. Okay, we waited a minute, so I'm going into monitoring again here in the Lambda function, and I'm going to view logs in CloudWatch. And then I'm going to click on this entry, and we see event type pause. So that worked. It's getting triggered every minute. Now I'm just going to navigate to Redshift Boto 3. So the Lambda function that I created, the runtime number is Python. So the SDK to access AWS services for Python is Boto 3. So I'm searching Redshift Boto 3, and we get this Redshift client. So I'm going to go here, go to configuration. We'll just put this right in here. So we'll say if event, all right, and then remember within the event, put type equals pause. We're going to do something here, right? So we'll go into here. Let's do this. Let's import Boto 3. All right, we'll do Redshift equals Boto 3.client Redshift. And then we'll go here. Let's go to pause cluster. All right, shift pause cluster, and all we really have to provide is the cluster identifier. Let's go like this, response, shift pause cluster. Let's duplicate this tab. Duplicate tab. Let's go to Redshift. Oopsies. Redshift. We'll go to, we'll just click on this cluster right here. Put one, then we go to properties. All right, and our cluster identifier is example cluster. I'm just going to put that in here. And then what we'll do is print response. All right, and I can deploy this. Now I'm going to pause the video and see if this worked. Oh wait, this is not going to work because I have to be in the correct VPC. So let me just do that real quick. Edit this, edit VPC, subnet. I'll go in the private subnet. Security group. I'm going to choose the private security group. All right, we'll save that. Oopsies. Okay, so then I do have to give this Lambda function some VPC privileges to create a network interface. So it's EC2 actually. So, and before I do this, I'm going to go to permissions. I'm going to go to this Lambda role. I believe there is a policy, managed policy that will do this. Let's just look at Lambda. Let's see, where are you? This one, I think. See, so AWS Lambda VPC access, if we look at this, yeah, it gives us what we need. So I'm going to attach that. Okay. Now that's attached. Now I'm going to go into configuration. Private. Save. And there you go. So that's going to take a couple minutes to update. I'm just going to pause the video. That took a pretty long time, but that finally updated. I'm just going to wait another minute so that the Cloudwatch rule triggers the Lambda function, and that was a minute, so let's just check. See, we're going to go to view logs in Cloudwatch. Let's see, this one. Client is not defined. Oopsies. So we're going to go back here, configurations. So we named this Redshift, but I copy and pasted this right from Boto 3. That should be client. That should be Redshift instead of client. All right, we'll just wait one more minute. All right, another minute passed, so I'm going to go to our Cloudwatch logs. All right. This is still the old one. Hold on. No. Not seeing the next one. Here we are. Okay. When calling the cluster. Okay. So we need to have a backup. I do remember this and I forgot about it. There has to be a snapshot before you can pause the cluster. So we're going to make a snapshot. If we go to Redshift, we could just do a manual snapshot for now. Create snapshot, choose cluster. Let's not let that be definitely. Create the snapshot. I'm just going to pause while this creates. Once it finishes creating, then we'll go back to the Lambda function and see if it finally paused the cluster. Well, funny enough, an automated snapshot completed just as I was creating this manual one. So we'll go back and I'm going to wait till another minute for this to re-execute. And we'll see if this works. Okay, another minute went by. Let's check our Cloudwatch logs. Let's see if this has, I think this was before. Okay. Noun cluster, state default. Oh, this is a comedy of errors. Okay, so there's another operation running on the cluster, and obviously that is the actual creation of this snapshot. Let me see if the latest one worked. What I'm going to do is cancel this one. Is that going to work? Okay. Sure, why not? All right, let's just see. Let's wait till 4 o'clock or 4 o'clock my time and see if this finally works. So there can't be another operation happening on the cluster when you pause. So that includes a snapshot being created and it needs to have a snapshot created. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. Okay, we can only pause an active cluster. All right, so that just means to me that one of them worked. If we go to the cluster now, it's being paused. So one of the actions worked. I don't know which one it was, but we can try to find. They all seem to be. Oh, no, I found it right here. So that was the one that worked successfully. All the other ones were failing because it was already paused. So that's that. Then what we could just do is go to the Cloudwatch rule. Say if we wanted that to happen at 8 o'clock every day, we can just edit this rule. Say 0 minute, 18th hour. So now it's going to happen every, well, it's 6 o'clock, isn't it? Can make that at 8 o'clock every evening. Update that rule. We can also, let's see, now let's we'll create a resume now. It's pretty much going to work the same way. So we'll do the same Lambda function, and then this time I'm going to put in here type. Arrow key's not really working. Resume. Configure details. RS resume cluster. Create rule. So now if we go in here, I'm just going to copy this from resume cluster, and pretty much the same deal here. Oopsies. Okay, I'm going here. Else. I'm not going to forget to do this. Redshift resume cluster. Print response. Deploy. So right now, is our cluster paused? Yes. So the next time, let's see, that rule that I just created is going to resume the cluster. Well, I'll just double check that. I'll wait a minute. So I just noticed I never renamed the cluster identifier there. But I was able to catch that before the minute change. So let's just see if we have it. Go in here. Let's see. Type resume, question not found. Yep, so that was when I had the wrong cluster identifier. Let's just see. Here we are. All right. So now the cluster should be resuming. There it is. It's resuming. And then, last but not least, we can go into this resume cluster. Now let's say if we wanted to have the cluster resume 8 a.m., right? Or let's do 10 a.m. So we can do, so that'll be 10 a.m. every day. All right, and there you go. That's how to resume and pause a cluster on a scheduled basis.